Okay, so let's just summarize the chapter right quickly. I think I've probably said before, and if not, I'm going to go ahead and say it now. The more things change in this business, the more they stay the same. Um, how we handle virtual desktop infrastructure now is an illustration of the way things have moved from a centralized to distributed and then back to a simple centralized approach to uh, data processing and compute resources, from a bunch of dumb terminals connecting to a single massive computer with a tiny fraction of the compute power we have at our disposal all the time now, um, to distributed computing with lots of um, desktop and workstation and server grade microcomputers doing the work. Going back the other direction, now that we have virtual desktop infrastructure, virtualization, high-speed networking, etc., you can use that centralized compute power, what we now call server farms and data centers, to push the information system you want out to your users wherever they are, whether it's with whether they're accessing um, that centralized compute resource with a microcomputer of their own, or with something less powerful than the thing they're accessing. Anyway, two of the major providers are, of course, VMware and Microsoft. We've spent about a significant fraction of our time on both of these. There are lab demo videos for both of these. There are some basic components that they'll both require: a connection server, user clients, desktop virtual machines, various ways of building those on the fly, various kinds of resource pools. They're both going to need directory services, primarily the Microsoft Active Directory. You can deploy these things into Microsoft member servers. This is true of both the remote desktop services role on a domain member server, or deploying VMware Horizon's connection server onto a domain member server. Do not do this with the domain controller. You'll need to interact with your domain controller to create the appropriate groups, to create the appropriate permissions. But that's something you can do at the source when you need it. Now, one thing you can do in order to promote storage efficiency, these desktop environments kind of are going to have to limit the amount of storage space used by each virtual desktop, and also the storage space used in the aggregate. There's a couple different ways to do this. One of them is to only issue people who need it, to only issue full um, full clone persistent VMs to those people who need it. Most of the rest of everybody can get linked clones, differencing disks, non-persistent storage, and maybe a little bit of storage available to them for persistence sake using roving profiles or whatnot. We did a basic desktop infrastructure for both Horizon and VDI. You'll do kind of the same things on both. You have to tie your your connection server to the rest of your system. Tie your Horizon server to your vCenter. Tie your Horizon server to the VMs that they're going to run, to the compute resource that they're going to use. On the same by the same token, on the Microsoft side of things, you'll tie your connection server, your connection broker, to your web access server to provide to provide a front end, and to your virtualization host to provide the back end. One of the big differences here is that when you're preparing your guest OSs um, for VMware Horizon, you can set up a custom specification, and you have to install the Horizon agent into the VM. You can then turn that into a template if you want to, for the sake of cloning new machines at will. On the VMware, on the Microsoft VDI side of things, you don't have to install pardon me, you don't have to install an agent, but you do have to sysprep. You may also want to sysprep your guest VM on the Horizon side of things. This is something you can do on in both cases, for the sake of rendering that image generic, giving the system the power to give it a new host name at will, give it a new password, username and password at will, things like that. So there's this is a very high-level summary of Microsoft's virtual desktop infrastructure. There's more to it, so absolutely read the book, watch the videos, do the labs. If you have any questions, please contact me using the usual channels. So thank you and have a good evening.